Welcome to my next video. Some of the solutions near the end will be considered controversial. In this video I will endeavour to explain why socialism is bad for the poor in our society. Socialism will not help in the way it is promoted by the socialists. One of the principal goals of socialists is the destruction of society, especially one that is based on private property rights. Part of this is for the government to own all assets and the means of production, and by this method making everybody dependent on the state for everything from basic necessities upwards. Now let's look at some specifics. Socialists use the power of the state to crowd out private charities. In the USA, although what happened there inevitably happens here as well, after the Second World War, America became more and more wealthy, and there was a growing tendency to give more and more to worthwhile charities. Then in the mid-60s, this trend suddenly reversed. The proportion of wealth given away dropped markedly, even though the wealth of that country continued to rise. This was because of the progressive taxation that was being used by the government to take over the welfare systems. Why should I support a very worthwhile charity when the government is taking the money I used for charitable purposes and establishing a government department to do what the private charity was doing, helping the poor? I do not think so. Private charities were there to aid the poor and help them get ahead. One of their unstated aims was to work themselves out of business. This is not so with a state-run charity. The downside of government charity, as in all socialist systems, is that the bureaucracy grows alongside the so-called worthwhile charity. Once again, we are not competing to satisfy willing customers, but are doing all we can to satisfy the bureaucrats at the top. Keep the poor indebted to the government department and you will keep yourself in a job, hardly helping the poor when all you are doing is growing a bureaucracy. Another aspect of socialism and the poor is that regulation will never decrease prices. A classic example is in the USA, when there was a civil aeronautics board, a government department that regulated all aspects of the airline industry, including what fares were charged. For internal US flights in 1969, before deregulation, the average inflation-adjusted fare was $616. In 2016, after deregulation, the average fares dropped to $344, nearly a 50% fall. Before deregulation, only the rich could afford to fly. After deregulation, even the poorer could afford a ticket. Airlines were able to compete on fares and service, not just service. Here in New Zealand we had an over-regulated taxi regime. For the taxi owner it was a license to print money. Today the regulations are over standards and not over the number of taxis. So prices for the customer have fallen markedly. Socialism and government control do not work to lower prices. In New Zealand today we have a socialist government that is wanting to help the less abled and all other beneficiaries by giving them more and more of our money with little or no sanctions before receiving that money. Their philosophy is that the state should increase its payments to beneficiaries to enable them to live an acceptable life. Remember, the government does not have any money. It is our money they are giving away. I understand that a solo mother with 2 children will receive, when you include all the extra allowances, such as rent subsidies, nearly $1,000 per week. What incentive is there for that mother to get off the benefit and into paid employment? This even more so when the job that she is likely to be qualified for would be a basic one. That would not be paying anything like what she is receiving with welfare payments. This even though it is an established fact that the social consequences of her remaining on the benefit are much less than ideal. Sons are more likely to get into crime, daughters more likely to have children out of marriage, and the woman beneficiary more likely to get into an unhealthy relationship. Put me in charge of social welfare and the following rules would apply. Remember always that being on a benefit is voluntary. Nobody is forcing you to take my money. All benefits would be paid into a debit card that can only be used for essentials like food, clothing and rent. If you want to purchase alcohol, cigarettes or gamble, then get a job. If you are living in a state house or receiving housing support, your home will be subjected to regular inspections. It must be maintained properly and any possessions will be inventoried. If you want widescreen TVs or other luxuries, then get a job. If you want job seeker support, then you must seek employment. If this means being drug-free, so be it. You must prove that you have genuinely sought out employment before you receive the benefit. If you have not found work, we will provide it. Yes, it will be basic, but there is nothing for nothing in this world. If you are a solo mother with 2 children and are receiving a benefit, and you have another child, there will be no increase in the benefit. It was your choice to have the additional child, so it is your choice to live within your means. You state that these rules will undermine self-esteem. It was not so long ago that getting something for nothing was called stealing, and that was thought to be demeaning. Remember, all this is voluntary. If you want my money, then here are the rules. Don't like the rules? Then get a job and you can live by your rules. I accept that there will be exceptional cases that need a more liberal approach, but the above must be the norm, not the exception. My answer is to make the road off welfare as easy as possible, with as little loss of finance as is practical, but on the other side, the rules as strict as feasible and enforced. I spoke to a former politician, no names, no identity, but his solution was, turn off the taps. My response was, you will have an explosion in the prison population. His answer was, deal with that, it will only be a short-term problem. Unfortunately, there are no political parties in New Zealand that would impose such measures, as they are all far too left-leaning. Social welfare must be considered an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, not a fence at the top. Well, that is the end of this video. If you would like to comment, both positive and negative, feel free, as it is good to have a two-way conversation. Also, this will give me ideas for future commentary. Please like and share this video with your friends and family, and if you wish to subscribe to find out when I upload new videos, please use the appropriate buttons. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.